Welcome back to Practically Political. I'm Dave Spencer. It's great to have you with us again.
Yes, we're happy to have you all. I'm Carrie Sheffield. We have a special guest from the Bipartisan Policy Center from BPC. His name is Bill Hoagland. He is a senior vice president there and an expert on all things budget and economics. And boy, Dave, nothing's been happening on that front, right? We've had no budget crisis, right?
No, and what I like is when they get serious about it, they're negotiating over 14% of the budget. So there's so much to cut.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And then have a complete leadership meltdown over that 14% for 6 weeks. So anyway, I'm trying to understand, where do we go from here? So Bill, what's your assessment? I mean, you've followed these antics for so long. I mean, this was unprecedented to have a speaker removed. That's never happened, as I understand it.
No.
This is uncharted terrain, but Bill, I think you're someone who can help us at least navigate what's happening. What's your read on everything as it relates to what do we do with the budget moving forward?
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me, Carrie and Dave. Where are we going in the next, quite frankly, we're probably down to 30 days, not 45 days, when you take out the fact that they lost this week and they will not come back until Wednesday in the House and vote on their new leader, whoever that might be, on Wednesday, and get organized under the new leader. We've lost maybe 2 weeks of that 45 days at a continuing resolution. So the clock is ticking away, and not a lot of time left here to get all the appropriation bills done, which is what Mr. Getz said we had to do, all 12 of them. The House has passed a few of them, but and the Senate has passed all of its out of its committees and are ready to go. But we're still big difference between the Senate and the House in terms of where the number should be. It goes back all the way to the spring when we set in the Fiscal Responsibility Act, when we raised the debt limit and set the numbers for what the appropriation should be for this fiscal year that began last week.
Well, I guess what's so frustrating to people on the outside is that you have a combination. It's like the perfect storm. So you have people like Matt Gaetz who don't really care about governing. And of course, it's all about the debt unless there's a Republican in the White House, right? Donald Trump had the most profligate 4 years of any president in history, a quarter of our debt in just 4 years. And then on top of that, you have most of the budget's off the table. So you have, as I understand it, and Bill, you probably know this stuff better than we, but about 14% of the budget is discretionary, about another 12% is military. So you've got under a third of the budget that's discretionary, and now military is off the table. So you're talking about 14%. This is what they're arguing about. And I must admit, I really resent both Trump and Biden, frankly, for taking Social Security and entitlements off the table, because that's where the money is. And there have been some brave senators we've talked about this on the show before, like Bill Cassidy, who are saying, hey, guys, in 2034, there's going to be 25% almost mandatory cuts. We have to do something, but people are just burying their heads in the sand. What do we do? What's going to break the logjam of this perfect storm?
Well, you're singing my tune here. Yes, when you look at the total federal budget, about for all practical purposes, about 75% of it is off the rails in terms of what is available to be touched by the Getzes of the world. That's Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and of course, you're just paying the interest on our public debt. And that leaves, as you say, Dave, about 30%. And then of that 30%, about half of that is defense. And let's go even further. I'll suggest to you that's even a smaller percentage, because the Republicans in the House have said we're going to touch veterans, and veterans is a non-defense discretionary. So we're probably down to 10 to 12% of the federal budget we're arguing about here. The difference between the House and the Senate in terms of where they are with the overall numbers is about $120 billion. The Senate agreed back in the Senate, when we had the agreement back in the spring to raise the debt limit, we set caps for the current fiscal year and for fiscal year 25. and the Senate, and that number was 1.6 trillion dollars for all not all discretionary, all appropriated accounts that we're talking about here, which is about, as I say, about 30% of the budget. And the important thing here is that that there's a question that's been raised, and Mr. Getz and others have challenged it. That was that a ceiling or was that a floor? And the Senate considers it a floor. That's the number that they've marked up all their appropriation bills, 1.6. And maybe Mr. McCarthy backdoor dealed it this way. Maybe part of his problem of losing the leadership is because he did a side deal on the behind to tell his conservative friends not to worry about the 1.5 because it's a ceiling. We can go below it, and so they have been marking up bills at a much lower level, the fiscal year 22 level of I say about 1.5. So that nearly $150 billion difference is what we're arguing about here. But most of that, when it comes right down to it, as you said, is not defense. It's not the military construction, and it's not veterans benefits. And when you add it up for the Health and Human Services Subcommittee, that's nearly a $60 billion difference. And that's so we got let's get back to we got a long way to go here. Even if the House could pass its bills, the Senate is going to be higher. They're going to have to negotiate and between the House and Senate. So we're going to probably, I think we're going to end up having another continuing resolution after November, after Thanksgiving. We're going to have another one carrying us right up into Jingle Bells.